breakfast show. This is Expresso. Our attention is to the 16 days of activism to no violence for women and children. We're talking about corporal punishment this morning. Dr. Darren Green is in our studio, and we're asking your questions on 0839133728 and also our own questions, because we want to know about this. We were all beaten at school.
Absolutely. I mean, when we grew up, we had the corporal punishment at school, but I was just talking to Dr. Darren Green just now, saying that when it comes to corporal punishment, every kid is different, and every kid deals with that event in a different way. But when it comes to the physical signs and symptoms, Darren, what can parents look out for? Even though that it is illegal now, it's still happening.
Yeah, physically, what you'll notice are bruises. So if a child comes into the ER, to me, for example, and I'm looking at them for a sore throat, I'm examining them, I then notice other signs, things like bruising of the upper arms, typically where they've been gripped by the arms, shaken, for example, typically on the back. People often that abuse, knowing that they're abusing, often hit people on the back of their heads because that can be hidden quite well. So they do slaps on the back of the head, and that occurs throughout adulthood as well. So looking at bones, recurrent visits to a casualty or to the doctor for injuries, soft tissue bruises, etc., fractures that keep recurring. That can often also point to other medical conditions, not necessarily abuse, but these are things to look out for and watch out for.
What about when the kid speaks? I mean, yesterday with our other expert as well, we talked about when children come in, they tell you something, we should listen, right?
We should. Often we think the child is just acting out or making a joke about things, but just as an old person who's dement in their 80s or 90s might make an accusation that they're being hit in the shower while being bathed in an old age facility, it needs to be investigated, and that's where we need to be vigilant. Children often avoid going back to the punisher, so they don't want to get onto the school bus, for example. You will notice that the child's spirit is broken. They're not so spontaneous anymore. They're scared to make suggestions, show initiative, etc., as part of the whole syndrome of abuse. So that's what we need to be vigilant about.
Where do you draw the line when it comes to punishment? Because in some ways, if it's a tough subject for me, because I would be in favour of it if I look at the way that I grew up. But where do you draw the line? When does it become inappropriate for a child?
I think when you infringe on a child's human rights, firstly, to safety, to dignity, and obviously when the emotional impact is so dramatic, what parents should rather focus on is what is the temperament, inherent temperament, personality of my little one, of my child? Because I can assure you that disciplining physically doesn't work on all children. So, you have to look at the individual temperament of your child and choose an appropriate disciplining style where you lead by example. Children don't do what you say, they do what you do.
We're talking about corporal punishment. If you just joined us this morning, Dr. Darren Green is in our studio. I'm immediately thinking of a scenario in the shopping mall where a mom walked away from her child because he really wanted a toothbrush. In fact, it was in the toothbrush aisle. I know. He was throwing a tantrum and she walked away, and I was like, ma'am, you can't walk away from your kid. So, I mean, I've got a lot to say about this. What do you have to say? 0839133728. This is your show. We're talking about corporal punishment. Also keeping in mind that most of us got hit at school.
Absolutely.
Or even at home. Het jy pak gekry?
Natuurlik pak gekry, Maar ek's all right.
Ek's
all right. Ek is happy. Right, so we're going to continue this discussion. Remember that number, 0839133728. Call us, ask your question right now. Then let's head on over to the kitchen. Leigh-anne's got something yummy.